Let's move on. With days to go for Elon Musk to visit India, sources say that Tesla and the Tata Group are set to join hands. Tesla is likely to procure semiconductors from Tata Electronics as it eyes a local sourcing for allied EV infra. Tesla is expected to announce a manufacturing facility in India during Musk's visit next week. To discuss more on this likely development in the Indian EV space, we're joined by Gagan, Sidhu, who's the director at the CEEW Center for Energy Finance, and Shirish, Chandran, the editor at Evo India magazine. Gentlemen, morning to both of you. Shirish, let me start with you. Just set the tone for us, right? I mean, Tesla entering India, what happens to the incumbent players? Is it really a threat for something like a Tata Motors? And in any case, the EV ecosystem here is taking time to sort of fully develop. So at a time like this, with Tesla entering, how do the dynamics change?
Well, Tesla entering is going to be great for the Indian EV market because they're going to make so much of noise in India that will really give that whole impetus to the Indian electric car scene. And it will grow the market because the more players that come in, it's better for everybody because there is more confidence. Buyers get more confidence in electric vehicles. And also it will offer something that is not really there. So Tesla would probably, their entry-level model would probably be around 25, 30 lakh rupees when they start making it here in India. Right now, okay, it might give competition to Tata Motors' high-end vehicles, Mahindra's upcoming high-end vehicles, but overall the market will grow. And also they're going to invest so much in local manufacturing, and that will help everybody across the board.
So, you spoke about how what happens to the incumbent players, right? Tata Motors is the most formidable player so far in the system. And before I toss this to Gagan, I wanted your thoughts on that because we have seen a fair amount of slowdown in the passenger vehicle EV sales across the board. Is it because of the lack of options? Is it because of, charging infrastructure not sort of developing in its entirety? What do you think is causing this slowdown in the passenger vehicle EV space here in India? And with Tesla's plans, do you think that could sort of revive the, animal spirits in this space?
The adopters have already bought electric vehicles. They're all happy with it. In fact, if you look at the kind of response that they've been giving, they're all happy with it. Now it is the fence to jump.
Gagan, sorry, Shirish, we can't hear you. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
They need a kind of push from the fence, and coming in will probably be that push. And Tesla,
I'm going to come back to you, Shirish. I think there's some issue with your video, so I'll come back to you in a bit. Let me get Gagan Sidhu into this conversation as well. Gagan, your thoughts on Tesla's entry and how this would sort of change the dynamics of the EV market in India?
Sure, yeah. I'm just going to echo what Shirish said. It can only be a good thing. We're really at an early stage when it comes to India's EV transition. Penetration is, it's been growing, but it's really not at a level where it's anywhere close to what the government visions that it wants to achieve by 2030, which is about a 30% penetration on average, right? So you want the EV ecosystem to grow. You want new models to come in. And remember, India's EV transition so far has actually been led on the volume side, at least by two-wheelers, e-rickshaws, and three-wheelers, right? It's the four-wheeler segment which has lagged quite a bit. Some of it has got to do with the fact that charging infrastructure is an issue. Some of it has also got to do with the fact that perhaps there's not enough model offerings. So I think Tesla coming in can certainly add to the mix in terms of boosting the supply or the availability of choices for consumers.
Can you build on to that? I mean, EV adoption in passenger vehicles has been plateauing for the last many months, right? And the adoption is less than 2% at the moment. You spoke about two things, limited options as well as charging infrastructure issues. Let me add to that. There is a pricing premium as well, right? EV cars are at the moment about 30-40% more expensive than an average petrol car in the same category. Do you think that is another hindrance? And will Tesla be able to navigate all of these problems?
Yes, certainly. I think, pricing is certainly an issue. In fact, I think when you talk about pricing, it's also important to bring up the topic of policy, right? There's a host of policies actually that, we tend to sort of not fit together and look holistically on offer to drive or catalyze the EV ecosystem in India, right? So to start with, for example, there's a production linked incentive, not just for EVs, but for advanced automobiles. There's FAME, which actually sunsetted at the end of the previous financial year, just last month. But as a demand side measure, there's that electric mobility promotion scheme which has come in as a bit of an interim measure. There's lower GST on EVs, 5%. There's state-level policies on top of all this, right? So I think all of these things sort of work together in tandem to inherently reverse the pricing disadvantage that electric vehicles face vis-a-vis ICE vehicles.
Got it. Let's also touch upon what's happening globally, right? Shirish, I think Shirish is back with us. A couple of weeks ago, Tesla announced that for Q4, their numbers were weak. A couple of days ago, they decided to lay off 10% of their global workforce. This speaks a lot about how there could be a big global slowdown in the EV space. I mean, is that just a blip, or do you think it's a structural slowdown? And what do you think the ramifications of this could be on the Indian market?
Well, not just Tesla. Mercedes also recently walked back from their goal towards 2030 all EVs. So they said that after 2030 also they are going to have combustion vehicles, maybe hybrid combustion vehicles. So globally, all manufacturers, not just Tesla, are seeing a slowdown in the EV space. But let's put it into perspective. Globally, EVs are at a more advanced adoption level. In India, we still have a long runway to go to get there. EVs are what, less than 2% of overall car sales in India. So we have considerable runway, and India, I think as a market, is suitable for EVs. If you have your own parking space, if you can put your own charger, you are sorted. You don't really have much issue in terms of range anxiety and where you're going to charge it and all of that. In fact, with an EV, it is more convenient. You don't have to go to a fuel station. You don't have to line up for fuel, petrol or diesel or whatever. And also driving around an EV in the city is actually much easier than driving a combustion vehicle. So here in India, if you don't look at what's going internationally, because Indian market dynamics are very different. Also, the affordability levels in India are very different. With an EV, your charging costs are almost next to nothing. It costs less to run an EV than to use a local municipality transport bus. So your running costs are very low, and Indians are very value conscious. So I think there's a long way we can go, and there is space to grow, lots of space to grow in India.
So, you know, you were earlier telling us, Shirish, about the issues that the passenger vehicle space and the EV market are facing, right? Penetration is less than 2%. And there are three main issues that we discussed with Gagan as well. Limited options in the EV market, premium pricing. Most of these EVs are 30-40% more expensive. And then range anxiety. Do you think we've made any headway with the three of these issues? And by when do you think penetration will reach, you know, about double digits, 10%?
Okay, so let's start with cost. The more players come in, overall costs go down, okay, because volume increase. So that's one side of thing. And that's a great thing that testing it, because they do a lot of local manufacturing, and that's really going to help all of us. So that's one. Range anxiety, a lot of the OEMs say that it is over-indexed. We tend to stress a little too much on range anxiety. If you have a charger, and now suppose you are commuting in Mumbai, with your home charger, you are fine. And how many times do you go, say, Mumbai to Goa to go and drive? Once a year, twice a year? That time, of course, you have to plan it out. You have to charge up completely, maybe stop at Kolhapur and then charge until you get to Goa. But the newer range EVs that are coming will have a real world range of, say, 500 kilometers. For your Mumbai, Goa drives that you do, maybe walk about. But honestly, it's not really an issue. And if you talk to anybody who's been using an EV, they don't really complain about range anxiety.
Okay, I think you have some issue with your video again, so we'll try and come back to you in a bit. But Gagan, I wanted your thoughts on it. You know, you spoke about how the EV adoption has largely been in two-wheelers and three-wheelers. But even if you look at two-wheelers, right, currently adoption is what, at about 6% levels. How much do you think this can scale up to? And the market structure has been pretty closed. I mean, there are 6 to 7 players, amongst which the top 4 players enjoy 80% of the market share. Do you think this space, the two-wheeler EV space, could open up in a big way?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the big things that's driving EV adoption in the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment is that you don't really need to rely on public charging infrastructure, right, to charge these type of vehicles. You can actually do it in a home setting. That's been a big plus for it. On top of course, all those incentives that I mentioned earlier, right? A lot of these incentives actually are actually driving particularly the two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment. And, you know, this electric mobility promotion scheme, which is coming as a bit of an interim successor to FAME 2, which lapsed on March 31st actually specifically focuses on the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment. So I think there's a big push to actually get at least this segment to electrify first, and then to actually have more sort of manufacturing-led type of growth that's going to come and drive the four-wheeler segment. Finally, in tandem with, of course, that all important charging or public charging infrastructure, without which, of course, the four-wheeler segment really will find it very, very challenging to grow.
Gagan, I wanted your thoughts on the auto ancillary space. Which are the companies that could be big beneficiaries of Tesla coming through to the Indian markets? And do you see a large potential here for them?
Yeah, so we don't really track at a company particularly level, particularly in the auto ancillary space. So that's going to be something I'm going to sidestep. But more, broadly for the ecosystem, where we are in terms of penetration, of course, the penetration level across all categories crossed 5%. And of course, it varies. In terms of electric three-wheelers, it's much higher. In terms of electric four-wheelers, it's much lower. In terms of electric two-wheelers, it sort of mirrors where the national average across categories is. But because it's still so low, it can only be a good thing to have a Tesla come in. And I think the way to sort of look at it is the several policies that are in play on offer in India are actually not geared towards any one particular company. It's actually to the benefit of the Indian auto sector. It's not for any company or for any country or against. It's for the benefit of the Indian auto sector. It's for the benefit of decarbonization, right? At the end of the day, we talk about net zero. 10% of India's emissions actually come from road transportation. So if you want to diversify away from, emitting sources of transportation, electric really is the top way to go. And finally, I'll close out by saying that, a lot of us tend to sort of forget what an important role policy has to play in both capital raising and capital deployment decisions. When it comes to the energy transition, we've seen it in the renewable space where quasi-sovereign offtake, where reverse auction for price discovery, and solar parks to sort of mitigate land aggregation risk have done wonders. Similarly, in India, I've talked about all those different schemes on offer. On the demand side, you've got FAME, of course, which sunsetted, but you've also got lower GST, you've also got state policies. And our own research at CEEW showed that states with EV policies actually had 2x better volume growth. States with higher incentives actually had 5x better volume growth.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because Tamil Nadu, right? It's known as the Detroit of India. It's aggressively pushing itself to be a manufacturing hub for Tesla. Shirish, you want to just wrap this up for us? Which are the auto ancillaries that could be big beneficiaries? And how do you see this entire thing play out now with Tesla coming through?
See, Tesla makes a lot of this stuff in-house, but look at it in terms of the knowledge that they will bring into the ancillary space. I was talking to the Tata Motors engineering head recently, and they said that globally there is a lot of advancement in terms of electric vehicle technology, but nobody comes and gives that to you on a platter. Nobody shares it with you. So in that sense, we are kind of trying to catch up to what they're doing globally, but Tesla are at the very cutting edge of EV tech. So them coming in will just add to the knowledge base here, which everybody, Tata Motors, Mahindra, all the two-wheeler space that we're talking about, and the two-wheeler space is actually the space that EVs are rapidly growing. When was the last time you heard of a combustion scooter being launched? Nobody launches combustion scooters anymore. Everybody's doing electric scooters. So they will also benefit, and that's what will benefit the mass market transition to electric vehicles. So overall, I think it's fantastic for the ecosystem.
Yeah, yes, even I'm very excited, to be honest. Can't wait to see the Tesla Model 3 in the Indian roads, right? And of course, the entire ecosystem sort of growing with that. Shirish, Gagan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Appreciate your time here on CNBC TV 18.